Your phone has surpassed mine. This is 48 megapixel. Is it using for you? Not using for you. No, your phone camera is not as sharp as mine.
The system camera.
But what about the disability?
Visibility.
I don't want me to use your meeting. You don't have to worry about it.
You don't worry. Once it's set,
Don't worry.
yeah, it will go.
I will still share your link later. So you don't have to worry about it. I am already. I didn't say it. You don't have to worry about it. I'm thinking that my own phone camera is sharper than yours. I think so.
You know what beginning. You know what beginning.
You know, I'm going to plug the key after now to make it right.
Like that.
See, the problem is massive. You see, if this thing was here to switch off the phone, you have to be careful not putting it like this, like this. So when you are moving this, make sure it doesn't get to the power button. It's okay like this. So just set it, and then when we start, we go like, make sure it's set, then we start. Are you set? Do you need to raise it up? You can raise it. Or you can turn it. Is it okay? Yeah, you can just start. Like, and just be like, let's see if it is okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. All praise is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May his peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam and his entire household and companions, and on all of those who adhere strictly to his guidance and follow his teachings till the day of recompense. Allahumma ameen. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, this evening we shall continue our discussion on the Hadīth of Umdatul Ahkam. And today we shall be reading Hadith number 37, which is a continuation of our last week discussion on the issue of Atayammum. Atayammum is known as a dry ablution. It is the substitute for water ablution. And like we did mention in our last class, tayammum is resorted to if there is no water for ablution, or if the water will not be enough for ablution, or if the user nurses an injury that prevents him from using water for ablution. So today, inshallah, we shall be reading the hadith of Ammar bin Yasir radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And the text of the hadith is as thus: عن عمار بن ياسر رضي الله عنهما قال بعثني النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في حاجة فأجنبت فلم أجد الماء فتمرقت في الصعيد كما تمرق الدابة ثم أتيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فذكرت ذلك له فقال إنما كان يكفيك أن تقول بيديك هكذا ثم ضرب بيديه الأرض ضربة واحدة ثم مسح الشمال على اليمين وظاهر كفيه ووجهه. This is the text of the hadith. On the authority of Ammar ibn Yasir, may Allah be pleased with the both of them. I have explained this in all of our classes, that when a Sahabi's father is also a Sahabi, such a Sahabi is prayed for with the expression radiyallahu anhuma. So Ammar ibn Yasir, may Allah be pleased with him, and his father Yasir bin Amir bin Malik, as we will later discuss inshallah, said, Ba'athani an-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam fi haja. The Prophet once sent me on an errand. I'm going to explain what errand the Prophet sent Ammar ibn Yasir, inshallah. The Prophet once sent me on an errand to get him something. فَأَجْنَبْتُ, I became sexually defiled. I have explained the meaning of janaba in our last class. So I became sexually defiled. I released spermatozoa. فَلَمْ أَجِدِ الْمَاءِ, and I did not have water with me to perform the janaba bath. فَتَمَرَّقْتُ فِي الصَّعِيدِ, so I rolled in the sand. There's another riwayah that says fatama'aktu. Fatama'aktu. It is the same. I rolled in the sand. Kama tamarragu dabba. Ay kama tatamarragu adabba. In the manner that animals roll in the sand. If you have ever seen chicken or goats rolling in the sand, you understand what he meant by I rolled in the sand. فذكرت ذلك ثم أتيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Then I came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam because he sent me somewhere, and this incident happened while I was away. So when I returned from the errand, I went back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فذكرت ذلك له, and I informed him about what has happened to me. I mentioned the incident to him. فقال, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إنما كان يكفيك, it would have sufficed you. It would have sufficed you. It would have been okay for you. أن تقول بيديك هكذا, to do like this with your hand. So the Prophet did something with his hand, and he said, it would have been okay for you to just do this with your hands. What was that thing he did? ثم ضرب بيدي الأرض. The Prophet used both of his hands. He placed them on the floor, on the sand. He placed both of his hands on the floor. Darbatan wahida, just once, as if he was hitting the floor, like this. Once. ثم مسح الشمال على اليمين. He rubbed his left hand on his right hand. There's another wire that he rubs both hands together. He rubbed the left on the right and the right on the left. وَظَهِرَ كَفَّيْهِ. So what he did was, he rubbed the hands together like this, both the inside and the outside of his palms. وَوَجْهَ, and then he rubbed his face. Let's go back to the beginning of this hadith. This hadith was reported by Ammar ibn Yasir. Who is Ammar ibn Yasir? Ammar ibn Yasir is one of the Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the noble companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His full name is given as Ammar ibn Yasir ibn Amir ibn Malik. Ammar ibn Yasir ibn Amir ibn Malik. His father is Yasir ibn Malik. Yasir ibn Malik was originally from Yemen. He and two of his brothers, Malik and Al-Harith, came to Medina from Yemen in search of one of their brothers. They were looking for him. They came to Mecca from Yemen. They came to Mecca from Yemen in search of one of their brothers. When they got to Mecca, After a while, Malik and Al-Harith returned to Yemen, leaving Yasir. Yasir thus entered into an alliance with a man known as Abu Hudhayfata bin al-Mughira. Abu Hudhayfata bin al-Mughira. He entered into an alliance with this man. What is the meaning of entering into an alliance? During the period of Jahiliyyah, it was a common practice among the Arabs to enter into an alliance with someone with the agreement that you are now my brother. I will protect you, you will protect me. I will inherit you in case of your death, you will inherit me in case of my death. This is known as al-muhalafa. Al-madha? Al-muhalafa bil-ha. So he entered into an alliance with him, and this practice was recognized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. So Allah says in Surah An-Nisa, Quran chapter 4, that should be verse 33. Allah says, وَلِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مَوَالِيَ مِمَّا تَرَكَ الْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأَقْرَبُونَ وَالَّذِينَ عَقَدَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ فَآتُوهُمْ نَصِيبَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدًا كان على كل شيء شهيدا ولكل جعلنا مواليا مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون والذين عقدت أيمانكم فآتوهم نصيبهم إن الله كان على كل شيء شهيدا. The محل الاستشهاد here is والذين limiting inheritance to wives, parents, and children and siblings. Those with whom a man has entered into an alliance can inherit him the same way that he can also inherit them. So, Yasir bin Amir bin Malik, the father of Ammar, entered into an alliance with Abu Hudhayfata bin al-Mughira. Abu Hudhayfata bin al-Mughira has a female slave. Was Ammar bin Yasir. Sumayya, Yasir, and Ammar were among the earliest converts to Islam who were being punished by the Quraysh in Mecca. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said, Mimman adhara Islamahu أو من السبعة الذين أظهروا إسلامهم عمار بن ياسر وأم سمية. Among the 7 people who proclaimed their Islam publicly in Mecca in the earliest stage of Islam were Ammar bin Yasir and his mother Sumayya. Sumayya, like I told you in the last halqa, was the first martyr in Islam. She was killed by Abu Jahl. He stabbed Sumayya with a sword, with a spear. It is said that he stabbed her in her private part, and she died. Yasir, the father of Ammar, was also killed during the torture by the Quraysh. So Ammar bin Yasir and his siblings survived their parents. Ammar bin Yasir was one of the two companions of Prophet ﷺ that were reported to have died while the Prophet so much loved them. Ammar bin entered upon the Prophet ﷺ. When he knocked at the door, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Who is that?" He said, "Ammar." He said, "Permit him to enter. I'idhan lahu marhaban bit-tayyib al-mutayyab." You are welcome, the pure and purified. It is also mentioned that Ammar bin Yasir once entered upon Ali bin Abi Talib, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and Ali bin Abi Talib said, إِذَنْ لَهُ مَرْحَبًا بِالطَّيِّبِ الْمُطَيَّبِ فَإِنِّي سَمِعْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم يقول عمار إِنَّ عَمَّارًا مُلِيءٌ إِيمَانًا إِلَى بُشَاشِهِ. The Prophet said, Ammar bin Yasir is filled with Iman to the marrow. Bushash. Some of the scholars said Bushash refer to the joints, the wrist, the elbow, the knee, the toe, the ankle. That Ammar bin Yasir is filled with Iman. It is also that Prophet said to Ammar bin Yasir, تَقْتُلُكَ الْفِئَةُ الْبَاغِيَةُ. It is the oppressive group that will kill you. Ammar bin Yasir was killed during the battle of Siffin, and it is said that he died at the age of 93. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. So this is the reporter of the hadith, Ammar bin Yasir. Now this incident, Ba'athani an-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Prophet sent me fi haja, on an errand. This is the report that Al-Maqdisi has mentioned in this book. There are other narrations of this hadith in the Sahihain and in the Sunan. Indicates that it was not only Ammar bin Yasir that was sent on an errand, but Ammar bin Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. It is mentioned in the hadith by Abdurrahman bin Abza, Abdurrahman bin Abza, who said, once a man came to Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, O leader of the faithful, I have been sexually defiled. Inni ajnabtu. I am sexually defiled. Walam ajidil ma. And I can't find water to take my bath. Umar said, Fala tusalli. Then don't pray. The man came seeking fatwa from Umar. I have janaba and I don't have water to bath. What should I do? Umar said, La tusalli. Don't pray. One of the riwayat, hatta tajida lima, until you are able to find water. When he said this, Ammar bin Yasir, who was there, looked at Umar bin al-Khattab and he said, Ama tadhkuru ya Amir al-Mu'minin, O leader of the faithful, do you not remember? Idh ana wa anta fi sariya, when you and I were among the army sent by the Prophet ﷺ on an errand. It is mentioned that the errand was to tend to cattle. They went to tend to cattle. For ajnabuna, and the two of us had janaba, were sexually defiled. For amma anta falam tusalli, as for you Umar, you did not pray because you had janaba. Wa amma ana fatamarrabtu fi as-sa'id kama tamarrabu dabba. As for myself, I rolled in the sand in the way that animals roll in the sand. So when I did this, we came back to the Prophet ﷺ. فَذَكَرْتُ لَهُ ذَلِكَ, and I informed the Prophet ﷺ of what has happened. فَقَالَ يَكْفِيكَ أَن تَقُولَ بِيَدَيْكَ هَكَذَا. So the Prophet ﷺ said, you should have just done this, and the Prophet ﷺ did the tayammum. When Ammar ibn Yasir mentioned to Umar, Umar said, Ittaqillaha ya Ammar. Oh Ammar, fear Allah. Ammar said, In shi'ta ya Amir al-Muminin, lam azkurhu. If you don't want me to say this hadith, then I will not say it. Umar said, La. Walakin nuwallika minhu ma tawallayt. Like the hadith go, you only be responsible for what you have said. Now, what am I trying to point out here? This incident that happened to Ammar ibn Yasir did not happen to him alone. It happened to him and Umar. But Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu have forgotten the details, because the mawqif, the fatwa of Umar ibn al-Khattab is that he cannot observe tayammum. That is the fatwa of Umar ibn al-Khattab. You are sexually defiled, you can't observe tayammum. You have to go and do ghusl. So long as you can't find water for ghusl, you cannot do tayammum and pray. This was also the position of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Al-Imam Bukhari narrated in the Sahih, and the Ashab al-Sunan also, that one day Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari were sitting. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari were sitting down when Abu Musa al-Ash'ari asked Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He said, Ya Aba Abdurrahman, O Abu Abdurrahman, I want to ask you a question. What is your opinion if a man becomes sexually defiled and he could not find water? What should he do? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, he should not pray until he is able to find water. Then Abu Musa al-Ash'ari asked him, Fama tasna biqawli Ammarin. What is your view concerning the statement of Ammar ibn Yasir that the Prophet once sent me and Umar on an errand, and we became sexually defiled, and so Umar did not pray while I rolled in the sand. And when we went back to Prophet ﷺ, he said, you should just to eat the floor and then you do tayammum. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, Amma taro anna Umar lam yaqna bidhalik. Do you not see that Umar ibn al-Khattab was not convinced by what Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, by what Ammar ibn Yasir said? Don't you see that Umar ibn al-Khattab said, Ittaqillah ya Ammar? He was not convinced. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari then said to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Linada call Ammar. Okay, let us leave the statement of Ammar. I'm not even arguing with you about that. Famadha tasna bil ayah. What are you going to say concerning the verse of the Quran? Wala wa in kuntum junuban fatahharu. Not the ayah, sorry. The ayah that says wala junuban illa, is it fatayammamu sa'idan tayyiban? What's that verse? Naam? No. What? Ila Ka'bayn? No, not that ayah. The ayah that says fatayammamu sa'idan tayyiban. أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط أو لامستم النساء فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا صعيدا طيبا. So let me take that discussion again. Listen very carefully, it's important. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari were sitting down one day. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari said to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Ya Aba Abdurrahman, O Abu Abdurrahman, if a man were sexually defiled and he had no water to pray, to take janaba bath, what should he do? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, he should not pray until he sees water to bath. Abu Musa said, فَمَا تَصْنَعُ بِقَوْلِ عَمَّارٍ. what are you going to do with this hadith of Ammar ibn Yasir that the Prophet told him to do tayammum? And then he said it to Umar that you were together. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, Ama tara anna Umar lam yakna bidhalik? Don't you see that Umar ibn al-Khattab was not convinced? He didn't agree to what Ammar ibn Yasir said. Abu Musa said, Linada call Ammar. Let us even leave Ammar's hadith. I'm not going to argue with you about that one. فَمَتَسْنَعْ بِقَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى أَوْ لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. What will you do with that ayah? What is your opinion? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud kept quiet. He could not say anything. But what he now said was, Inna law rukhasna lahum bidhalik. If we were to allow people to perform tayammum when they have janaba and they don't have water to bath, he said, La awsaka إذا برد على أحدهم الماء أن يدعه فيتيمم. It is possible that people become so lax that because water was cold, some people will refuse to take janaba bath and they go and do tayammum. That was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's defense. If we allow people to do tayammum when they have janaba, because they say there is no water, a time may come when people become so lax that somebody will say, this water is too cold for me to take janaba bath. I will go and do tayammum like that. But it is mentioned that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud later rescinded this fatwa and he made fatwa with that of Ammar ibn Yasir. So, the Prophet sent me on an errand. Ba'athani nabiyyu fi haja. Myself and Umar ibn al-Khattab. He asked us to go and tend to cattle. فَأَجْنَبْتُ. I became sexually defiled. Umar also became sexually defiled. فَلَمْ أَجِدِ الْمَاءِ. There was no water for us to bath. How are we going to pray? فَتَمَرَّتُ فِي الصَّعِيدِ. So, it occurred to me that I have janaba. If there were water, I would bathe my entire body with water. Since there is no water, I should just roll in the sand with my entire body. Look at the Sahabis ijtihad, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He did ijtihad that if I had water, I would bathe with water, my entire body. So now that there is no water, I should roll in the sand with my entire body. So he rolled in the sand. Kama tamarragu adaba, the way that animals roll in the sand. So when I rolled in the sand, I observed the salat with that rolling in the sand. I came to the Prophet and said, فَذَكَرْتُ لَهُ ذَلِكَ or فَذَكَرْتُ ذَلِكَ لَهُ. I informed him about what happened and what I did. The Prophet said, إِنَّمَا يَكْفِيكَ أَن تَقُولَ بِيَدَيْكَ هَكَذَا. Now look at this statement. أَن تَقُولَ. أَن تَقُولَ. What is known is that qala yakunu means to talk, abi. But in Arabic language, qala yakunu or qala yaqilu, kailula. Qala could have 8 different meanings. Arabic scholars said qala could have how many meanings? 8 different meanings. So when you see antakula, don't think it means to talk. It doesn't mean to talk. The evidence is this. There is a hadith from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. The hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, that he said, Inna al-mu'mina yara dhunubahu ka'annahu fi asli jabalin. Another أنه تحت جبل يخاف أن يقع عليه وإن الفاجر يرى ذنوبه كذباب وقع على أنفه. Another رواية كذباب مر بأنفه فقال به هكذا. قال, that was what is used. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, the believer sees his sins as if he were sitting on a mountain. So the mountain is like his sins, the sins he has committed. He fears that if he doesn't repent on time and abandon the sin, the mountain may fall on him and crush him. If a believer were about to commit a sin, Shaitan is luring him to a sin. That sin will occur in his mind as if it were a mountain. The way he fears that a mountain may fall on him and crush him is how he fears that if he commits that sin, the sin may destroy him. So he abandons the sin. وَإِنَّ الْفَاجِرَ, but a criminal, somebody that is used to sinning, يَرَى ذُنُوبَهُ كَذُبَابٍ وَقَعَ عَلَى أَنْفِهِ, he sees his sins like a fly that has not dropped on the tip of his nose. فَقَالَ بِهِ هَكَذَا, and he uses his hand to get out, get away. So قَالَ أَيْ فَعَلَ. That is why one of the poets said, concerning the meaning of qala, yaji'u qala lima'anin tujtala. Yaji'u qala lima'anin tujtala. Takallama istaraha mata aqbala. Sara ma daraba thumma ghalaba. وَلِتَهَيُّئٍ بِفِعْلٍ يُجْتَبَى. He said, Qala has several meanings. Among them is takallama, to talk, istaroha, to rest. That is why you call the rest that a man takes during the day qaylula. Qala yaqilu qaylula, among other meanings. So in this hadith, فَقَالَ بِهِ أَن تَقُولَ بِيَدَيْكَ هَكَذَا أي أَن تَفْعَلَ بِيَدَيْكَ هَكَذَا. It means to do like this with your hand. Tayammum is observed or performed by placing your hands on the ground. ثُمَّ ضَرَبَ بِيَدَيْهِ الْأَرْضِ. The Prophet used his hands to touch the ground like this. ضَرْبَةً وَاحِدًا, just once. We are coming to this issue. Is it once or twice? ثُمَّ مَسَحَ الشِّمَالَ عَلَى الْيَمِينِ. You rub the left on the right, both the inside and the outside. وَذَائِرَ كَفَّيْهِ, and the outside of his two palms. وَوَجْهَ, and then his face. Let us explain this hadith, and because of explanation, I will bring out the different juristic issues there. Gharib al-Hadith. What are the vocabularies in the hadith that need explanation? Fatamarragtu fi as-sa'id. I rolled in the sand. Taqallaba fil ard. It means you rolled on the ground. Taqallaba, when you change side. Hatta amma badanahu at-turab. Hatta amma badanahu at-turab, until the sand filled his entire body, or until his entire body was touched with sand. Hatta amma badanahu bit-turab, until at-turab, until his entire body was covered with sand. Then an taqula bi yadayka, you rub the bil-qawl al-fi'l, like I said earlier. Yaji'u qala lima'anin tujtala, takallama istaraha mata aqbala, sara ma daraba thumma ghalaba, walitahayyu'in lifi'lin yujtaba. He now said, fajumlatul ma'an, fajumlatan famani. These are 8 minutes. فَجُمْلَةُ الْمَعَانِ كُلْ ثَمَانِيَةٌ فَجُمْلَةُ الْمَعَانِ كُلْ ثَمَانِيَةٌ فَاحْفَظْ فَإِنَّهَا مَعَانٍ سَامِيَةٌ. 8 minutes. So, قَالَ in this aspect means فَعَلَ وَهُوَ كَثِيرٌ فِي لِسَانِ الشَّرْعِ وَلُغَةِ الْعَرَبِ. In the usage of the Sharia and in the language of the Arabs, the Arabic word qala is used to mean fa'ala, to do something. When you say qala fa'akala, it means tahayya'a lil akli. He prepared to eat and then he ate. Al-Mal al-Ijmali, what is the general meaning of this hadith? Generally speaking, what does this hadith means? بعث النبي عمار بن ياسر في سفر لبعض حاجاته. The Prophet once sent Ammar bin Yasir on a journey to take care of some of his needs. The Prophet wanted him to take care of some needs for him, like he do send other Sahaba. فَأَصَابَتْهُ جَنَابَةٌ. Ammar bin Yasir became sexually defiled. What is most likely in this case was that he had a nightmare, not that he had real sexual intercourse with his wife. He might have had a nightmare. This is the closest meaning. فَلَمْ يَجِدِ الْمَاءَ. And there was no water to take janaba bath. لِيَبْتَسِلَ مِنْهُ. There was no water from which he would take janaba bath. وَكَانَ لَا يَعْلَمُ حُكْمَ تَيَمُّمٍ لِلْجَنَابَةِ. Ammar bin Yasir at that time never knew that tayammum could be observed while one is sexually defiled. What Ammar bin Yasir knew was that tayammum was for izalatul hadath al-asghar. When there is no water to perform ablution and you are not in a state of ritual purity, maybe you urinated, you defecated, you released flatulence and the likes. These are minor impurities. Ammar bin Yasir only knew that you can do tayammum to take care of this. He never knew that even if you have janaba, which is a major impurity, you can do tayammum. So what did he do? وَإِنَّمَا يَعْلَمُ حُكْمَهُ لِلْحَدَثِ الْأَصْغَرِ. Ammar bin Yasir only knew that tayammum takes care of minor impurities. فَجِتَهَدَ. So he did ijtihad. And the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever does ijtihad and was correct, he has 2 rewards. Whoever does ijtihad and was wrong has 1 reward. Ijtihad is not done by juhala. You are a jahil and you say you want to do ijtihad. You cannot do ijtihad. Only the ulama who have the ahliyah of ijtihad can do ijtihad. As a sahabi, Ammar bin Yasir was not just a scholar. He was a scholar among the Sahaba, but he was not just a scholar. He also has all the necessary tools for ijtihad. So he did his ijtihad. He felt that qiyasan ala ghusl al-janaba, since you need to cover your entire body with water during janaba, he should just cover his entire body with sand, and then he can go and pray like that. وَظَنَّ أَنَّهُ كَمَا مسح بالصعيد بعض أعضاء الوضوء عن الحدث الأصغر فلا بد أن يكون التيمم من الجنابة بتعميم البدن بالصعيد. Ammar bin Yasir thought that the same way that he just wiped his face and the hand during tayammum for minor impurities, he has to cover his entire body with sand for janaba. Qiyasan ala al-ma. He made an analogy with what? Bathing for janaba. Fataqallaba fi sa'id. So Ammar bin Yasir rolled in the sand. Hatta amma turab أتى عمه التراب وصلى, until his entire body was covered with dust, and then he observed the salat. فلما جاء إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, when Ammar returned to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, whenever do anything behind the Prophet's back, they will go and tell him. The Sahaba were so sincere that even those that committed acts of zina, when the Prophet was not there, he didn't see them, they went and confessed to him. That was how sincere they were. So whatever they do behind the Prophet's back, they go and inform him in order to validate it, in order to learn from him, in order to correct it. So Ammar informed the Prophet, وَكَانَ فِي نَفْسِهِ مِمَّا عَمِلَهُ شَيْءٍ. Ammar ibn Yasir was not convinced that he had done the right thing. Even he himself had doubts about what he did, because he only did it ijtihadan minhu. He didn't do it because the Prophet told him to do it. So he had doubts. لأنه عن اجتهاد منه, because he did it out of ijtihad. ذكر له ذلك, he informed the Prophet about what he had done. هل هو على صدق أم لا, in order to know whether he was correct or not, to know whether he was right or wrong. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, who is responsible, he is tasked by Allah to explain the Sharia to the companions, and by extension the entire Ummah. He will never see what is wrong and keep quiet. And this is why one of the ways through which the Sunnah is established is at-taqrir. At-taqrir, tacit approval. Anything that was done in the presence of the Prophet, and he didn't say this is wrong, that itself is because what is wrong and what, and keep quiet. The day he saw a small walking on the street in Medina, of his head was shaved and the other part was left unshaved, the Prophet said, whose son is this? Whose side is this one? Go and shave the head, and if you entire head, then leave the entire head unshaved. Don't do what is called Al-Hikmah. You see some of our brothers doing qaza. That in Islam, you see them doing qaza, and then they will be wearing cap to class so that it will not be exposed. We should stop deceiving ourselves. Al-qaza is haram. Do not shave a part of your hair and leave the other part unshaved. So the Prophet said, يَكْفِيكَ أَنْ تَعْمِيمِ بَدَنِكَ كُلِّهِ بِالتُّرَابِ أَنْ تَضْرِبَ بِيَدَيْكَ الْأَرْضِ. Instead of rolling in the sand and covering your entire body with sand, you should just use your hand to hit the ground, and then you perform tayammum. ضَرْبَةً وَاحِدًا, just one time. ثُمَّ تَمْسَحْ شِمَالَكَ عَلَى يَمِينِكَ, and then you use your left hand to rub your right hand, وَظَائِرَ كَفَّيْكَ, and the back of your palms, وَوَجْهَكَ, and your face. Now, how do we perform tayammum? It is very possible that there are people in this masjid now that have never performed tayammum before in their lives. Am I correct? Am I correct? There are people that have never performed tayammum before in their lives, because they have never been in a situation where there is no water. Now look at how tayammum is performed. Get a dusty surface. It could be a rock, it could be a stone, it could be the floor, it could be the sand. Your two hands, place them on the sand. There is a reward of Prophet after placing his hand on the sand, he will blow the stones that are possibly, clinging to his palms, you blow them, or you will hit them against each other to remove the stones. The essence is to cover your palms with dust and not to cover your face with sand. The essence of tayammum is what? To cover your palms with dust, not to cover your face with sand. That's why you are doing al-masihu. Not that you not take sand with your hand and pour it on your face. So, in order not to eat yourself,
of the hand here, or the hand up to the elbows here, or even the hand up to the armpits. There's a hadith is not in the side that mentioned ilal abad, up to the armpits. But wallahu ta'ala alam, what seems to be more correct is what is reported in the Sahihain. In fact, Al-Imam Bukhari has a chapter. Okay. Al-Imam Bukhari has a chapter he named Babu Atayammum Lil-Wadi wal-Kafayn.
Wal-Kafayn. So he limited it to the kafad, the two palms. But Imam Malik in his Muwatta has riwayah from Abdullah ibn Umar that tayammum is to be done up to the mirfaqayn. So you have to wipe up to where? The elbows. But what is more correct, wallahu ta'ala alam, is that you are only to wipe your palms. Now, after wiping the palms, then you wipe your face. Khalas. And you go and pray like that. You go and pray like that. There is also ikhtilaf among the ulama concerning which one is to be wiped first. Is it the face before the palms, or the palms before the face? You know what Allah says, فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا وَامْسَحُوا بِوُجُوهِكُمْ وَأَيْدِيكُمْ مِنْهُ. He mentioned the face first before the palms. So, but there is no problem. Whichever you start with first, no problem. This is what the ulama have mentioned. Whether you start with the face before the palms, or with the palms before the face. Wallahu ta'ala. So let us see ikhtilaful ulama. What are the difference of opinions mentioned or stated by the ulama concerning the issue of tayammum? Ikhtalafal ulama. The scholars of Islam, and when we say ikhtalafal ulama, we are talking about those whose opinions matter. It is not everyone that is opinion matter, because the ulama do not speak out of self-desire. They speak out of knowledge. So if anybody says, I have an opinion, the first question we should ask is, are you an alim? If you are not an alim, then keep your opinion to yourself. One of the scholars said, أتانا من الأعراب قوم تفقهوا وليس لهم في الفقه قبل ولا بعد يقولون هذا عندنا غير جائز ومن أنتم حتى يكون لكم عند. Who are you to say we have opinion? It is only the ulama that have opinion. So اختلف العلماء, the scholars of Islam have held divergent opinions. هل يجزئ في التيمم ضربة واحدة للوجه والكفين أو لا بد من ضربتين? Does it suffice to just hit the ground once and then you wipe your palms and your face, or do you have to hit the ground twice? Once for your palms, once for your face. Like I mentioned earlier, Al-Imam Malik rahimahullah in his Muwatta narrated a hadith from Abdullah ibn Umar that tayammum is dorbatan, dorbatun lil-wajhi wa dorbatun lil-kaffayn. That you have to hit the ground twice, once for the palms, once for the face. Now, وهل لا بد من المسح على اليدين إلى المرفقين? Are we required to wipe our hand just to the wrist or to the elbows? The riwayah in Muwatta Imam Malik from Abdullah ibn Umar is to the elbows, not to the wrist. فذهب بعضهم, some of the ulama are of the opinion, ومنهم الشافعي, and among them is Al-Imam Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, ila annahu la budda min darbatayn. Imam Shafi'i said, for tayammum, you have to hit the ground twice, once for the palms, once for the face. Wahidatun lil-wajhi wal-ukhra lil-yadayn ila al-mirfaqayn, for the hands up to the elbows. Muhtajjina bi ahadith, and they have ahadith with which they have mentioned these issues. In the Sharh of Sunan Nasa'i, 3 of those ahadith were mentioned. 3 of those ahadith were mentioned. But the ulama have mentioned that these ahadith have issues. Let me discuss the 3 ahadith briefly. The first hadith is by Abdullah ibn Umar, that on one occasion the Prophet was urinating when a man passed by. فَمَرَّ عَلَيْهِ رَجُلٌ, a man passed by, فَسَلَّمَ عَلَيْهِ, and he said assalamu alaikum to the Prophet. While the Prophet was doing what? He was urinating. The Prophet did not reply his taslim. After urinating, the Prophet moved closer to a particular wall and rubbed his hand on that wall, and then he wiped his face. He rubbed his hand on the wall again and wiped his hand up to the elbows, and after that, radda alayhi salam, he now looked at the man and said, wa alayka salam. This hadith is the first evidence by Al-Imam Shafi'i and those that said you have to hit the ground twice, one for the face, one for the hand to the elbows. But this hadith is weak, because it is said that if is Muhammad bin Thabit, a man named Muhammad bin Thabit. Muhammad bin Thabit هذا is Abu Abdullah al-Basri, about whom Al-Imam Yahya said, rahimahullah, he said, Muhammad bin Thabit laysa bi shay. His hadith should be rejected. He is weak. And Al-Imam Bukhari also said his ahadith are not to be relied on. So this hadith is knocked out. The second hadith is that Al-Imam Shafi mentioned the hadith in his book Al-Umm, that the Prophet once performed tayammum and he wiped his face and also his hands to the elbow. But the scholars have also mentioned that in the chain of this hadith is a man known as Ibrahim bin Muhammad. Ibrahim bin Muhammad, Al-Imam Yahya bin Ma'in said he is a kadhab. He is a crook. Al-Imam Malik naha anhu, he said people should not write down his hadith. Al-Imam Ahmad also said this man is not reliable. The third hadith is that of Aslam. Aslam said, I was with the Prophet one day when I had janaba on me. The Prophet said, Aslam, kum, stand up. Warhalli, I want to send you on an errand. I said to him, Ya Rasulullah, inni ajnabtu. I have janaba on me. He said, while we were there, the verse of tayammum was revealed. And the Prophet taught me how to do tayammum. And he hit the ground twice, one for his face, one for his hand to the elbow. The ulama said, this hadith, the isnad is unknown, because it is reported by Al-Rabi' ibn Badr. Al-Rabi' ibn Badr, from his father, from his grandfather, the three of them, la yu'rafuna bi riwayat al-hadith. They are not known to be reporting hadith. So they don't even know them as reporters of hadith. As for Asla, is also majhul. So all the three hadiths are not valid. Do you understand? So one of the hadiths mentioned in the book is that of Imam Daraqutni from Ibn Umar. I have mentioned the hadith now. One for the face, one for the hand. But the hadith is not authentic. The majority of the ulama are of the opinion. ومنهم الإمام أحمد والأوزاعي وإسحاق بن راهوية وآل الحديث إلى أن التيمم ضربة واحدة. The majority of the ulama said tayammum is just one hitting on the ground and not two. وأنه لا يمسح إلا الوجه والكفان. And you are only required to rub your face and the two palms, not to the elbows. مستدلين بأحاديث صحيحة. And they have authentic ahadith that they relied on. منها حديث عمار هذا. One of which is the hadith of Ammar bin Yasir. So let us stop here and take a quick recap of our discussion today. Ammar bin Yasir narrated a hadith that the Prophet once sent me on an errand. But like I mentioned, there are other narrations of this hadith that indicated that it was not only Ammar, but Ammar with Umar. They were sent on an errand by Prophet ﷺ, and they became sexually defiled. Umar bin al-Khattab refused to pray because there was no water to bathe. Ammar bin decided to roll in the floor. He rolled in the ground because he thought that since he was required to bathe with water and he was going to bathe his entire body to perform to be able to perform salat, he has to roll his entire body in the sand. And the Prophet said, no, don't do that. What you should have done is to hit the ground once with your palms, remove the stone particles there, rub your palms against each other, and wipe your face with it. And this is how we do tayammum. So in case you are in a position where there is no water, and the time for salat is about to lapse, just get any dusty surface, hit your hand on it, touch it like this. If there are stone particles, remove them or blow them, or hit them against each other to remove it. And you wipe your hands against each other just to and then you wipe your face once, not twice, not thrice. Khalas. Even though you have janaba on you, that tayammum is enough to make you observe salat. Anytime you now find water, you are required to bathe, but not to repeat the salat. Are we clear on this? So Allah Ta'ala alam, we'll take the call to salat now, and then we'll take a few questions bi'idhnillah. Sallallahu wa sallam ala nabina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is 8:16 and we have so many questions. So inshallah, we'll just take a few to answer the remaining ones on Wednesday, inshallah. My sincere apologies. Let me just pick a few, inshallah. Somebody said we promised to do the Sawi today. Yes, inshallah, that will be next Friday. Someone should remind us for next Friday, inshallah. Is there any clear evidence regarding the recommendation or provision of Salatul Tasbih? You see, the Salatul Tasbih, there are different views of the ulama concerning the authenticity of the hadith establishing Salatul Tasbih. Some of the ulama have said, yes, it is authentic, because Prophet taught his uncle Al-Abbas, and Al-Abbas was the only one he taught. And the way of Salatul Tasbih is different from every other Salat. So, some of the ulama have said that this is very weak. Some said that this is okay. The position that I have taken is what I've heard from reading the books of many eminent ulama, and that is Salatul Tasbih is a bid'ah. The hadith is not correct. This is the position that I think, Wallahu Ta'ala Alam, is more correct. The hadith is not valid, is not authentic. I've heard the lecture of the late Sheikh Al-Albani of Zaria, alayhi rahmatullah, where he said, yes, can observe it. But I've also heard, I think I watched the lecture of Sheikh Umar Riji Alimu, and he said, no, the hadiths are not authentic. And I prefer to go with him because he's a alim fi ilm al-hadith. He's an authority in hadith. So I think I prefer to go with him, and it is what Sheikh Al-Albani has also mentioned, rahimahullah, is the fatwa of Sheikh bin Baz, Sheikh bin Uthaymeen, among others. Salatul Tasbih is bid'ah. Allah Ta'ala. In a situation where someone is praised and is in a desert where there is no water at all and it's time for salat, does the person have to go and urinate and do tayammum or what? That's what we're saying. Number one is that the Prophet has warned us to never approach salat in two conditions. Number one, if you are hungry and food is served, eat first, go for prayer later, so that you will not be on salat and you will be thinking about food, so that you will not Usain Bolt through the salat, or the imam is now elongating recitation, so that you will not start disturbing your mind and insulting the imam. That's why he said, La salata bihadrati at-ta'am wala wa huwa yudafi'uhu al-akhbathan. Do not observe salat if food is ready and served and you are hungry. Do not observe salat if you are praised either by defecation or by urination or even flatulence. Before you come to the masjid, try and go to the toilet. Go and relieve yourself so that it will not disturb you while on salat. So if somebody is in the desert and he is praised, let that person go and relieve himself or herself, and if there is no water for ablution, that person should simply do tayammum. So if you relieve yourself, I hope you are able to find stone or paper or handkerchief or tissue paper or leaf or stick to wipe yourself. These are the things you can use to wipe yourself. Handkerchief, tissue paper. Have you? You can use it to wipe yourself. Leaf, stone, stick. Shall be careful to wipe yourself. Then you cannot do tayammum, and then you observe salat. And if there is no stone, nothing to even wipe yourself, do tayammum like that and pray. And then later when you find water, you now wash yourself. That is what you have to do, inshallah. If the menstrual blood of a woman stops, is she to perform ghusl and observe salat when the time that the blood will continue? Let me try and understand this. Haid. The Prophet said, Al-Haid, or Damul Haid, Aswad Yarif. One of the scholars said you can read it as Yu'raf. Aswad Yurif or Yuraf. No? Yuraf. Yes, they said the two is correct. The menstrual blood is dark and smelly. It has smell. Or is dark and is known. Women know their menstrual blood. فَإِذَا أَقْبَلَتْ حَيْضَتُكِ فَدَعِي أَنْكِ صَلَاةً. When your period of haid comes, don't pray. And when your haid has finished, then bathe and continue to pray. Every woman knows her period of haid. Some women 3 days, some women 5, some 7, some 10. The maximum number of days a woman can go haid is 15. Any blood after 15 days is istihada, is irregular bleeding. But if you're under, and how does a woman knows? Maybe in one of our classes I will discuss the issue of haid. There are 3 categories of women concerning haid. The beginner A lady that has never done hide before in her life, this is her first time. John Lama said, how will she know a number of days? Number one, by asking the women of her family. Usually, people born by the same parents have similar menstrual cycle. So let her ask, Auntie, come, I saw something. And because she's naive, she doesn't know. In fact, she may be scared and say, hey, maybe she's dying. And that's why mothers have to be closer to their daughters at this stage to help them. What did you see? I see blood. So, okay, come. They will now teach her how to cover up herself. And she can now ask, how many days do you perform hide? How many days do you see your own? 7. It means you are likely to also see your own in 7 days. The second category of women are those that are used to it, and their menstruation is regular. 3 days, 3 days, 5 days, 5 days, no change. The third category are women whose menstruation blood is irregular. Now, the irregular are of 2 types. Some people, irregular in dates. Some people, irregular in days. Women understand what I'm saying. Some of them did their last menstruation between 20th of December and 28th of December 2021. So it means that for January, they're expecting it from 20th to 28th, Abi. Some people have irregular dates. In January, they now started seeing it from 15. Some from 27. That is irregular in dates. Irregular in days. In December and November, she did hide for 7 days. In January, her hide has extended to 9 days. All these issues, inshallah, we will find a day to discuss them. Bi-iznillah ta'ala. But al-muhim is that every woman knows her hide, her period of hide, especially if you are not a beginner. So when your normal days of hide approach, don't pray, don't observe salat. How do you know it is normal? Check the last 2 months. Do they rhyme? If they rhyme, this month also has to be the same number of days. If for this month you are doing longer than what you did the last 2 months, then you should take your bath as soon as the number of days for the last 2 months are completed. Even if the blood continues to flow, pad yourself very well. Continue to pray, continue to fast. That bleeding is an irregular bleeding. Especially every lady must master the color of the hide. The ulama said there are 4 ways to know the hide blood. Number 1, it is usually thick, thicker than normal blood. Number 2, it is dark in color. I have not seen one before. I've only read in books. Number 3 is that when it comes out, it is like burning. It comes out burning. Number 4, it has a foul smell. Am I correct? Am I correct? So they said no. So which one did I miss? I can't miss everything. This is what the ulama have mentioned in their books. This is what they have mentioned. This is what they have mentioned in their books. Allah Ta'ala. So every woman should master a menstrual blood, so that as soon as your days of menstruation are complete, then you know that the remaining bleeding is irregular bleeding. It does not stop you from praying and fasting. But what you are supposed to do is that, number 1, pad yourself. Number 2, do not observe salat until the time has entered, so that you don't do ablution before its time. Do ablution when time of salat has entered. Number 3, you can even combine salat. You can combine salat. We'll discuss that one inshallah. The hadith of Hamna bint Jahsh. The daughters of Jahsh, about 3 of them used to have irregular menstrual blood. Hamna bint Jahsh, Zainab bint Jahsh, the wife of the Prophet sallam. And then the Prophet sallam told them what to do. So inshallah, this is where we'll stop because of our time. May Allah forgive us where we have made mistakes. May He accept this from us as an act of ibadah. May He bless our knowledge. May He protect us. And may He grant us respite to witness more of this gathering, inshallah. أقول ما تسمعون واستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Allah, for the remaining questions, Ustaz will attend to them, inshallah, in our next class or during our radio program, inshallah. So stay tuned.